What is the weirdest thing you have ever seen a stranger do? I saw a man stop in the middle of a crosswalk, examine 2 leaves he was holding, throw one away with disgust, and eat the other leaf. Vegans. A lady in the airport, nicely dressed. She vomited in the middle of a walkway and just kept right on walking, perfectly composed, hardly even broke her stride, as if throwing up on the floor of a crowded public space was just another task to tick off on her list. She sounds like a Sims character. There is a coffee shop located in the building I work in. When it was time to close, midnight, I was told a guy was sleeping in the coffee shop. I woke him up and told him I was going to lock the doors and he had to leave. He stood up and opened a bottle of water and poured it on his jeans on his calf. I said, "What are you doing?" Meaning like, "Hey, you're getting water all over the floor, WTF," and he just politely said, "That's how they work, man," and then left. It still confused the hell out of me. You know those sticks that dog walkers use to throw the tennis ball further? I saw a guy just throw the whole thing, with a ball attached. Dude did it twice. Just last week, I saw a man walking around my work with one shoe. I politely pointed out that he was missing a shoe and he, also very politely, apologized and proceeded to pull out his wallet and attempt to wear it as his other shoe. Drugs are a weird thing, huh? A guy wearing boxers running behind a car which he was chained to by the neck and the waist. He was being escorted by a couple of other cars while people cheered around him. I'm pretty sure there is a context to this, but I was just passing by the town and no one from there could tell me what the fuck it was all about. Would the context make it any better? I think it would probably just raise more questions. A guy on the subway once took a handful of loose nuts out of his pocket and offered me some. I declined. An old bald man on the train in full lycra who ate a whole 1 kilogram bag of raw potatoes. Sometimes you got to carb the fuck up. On the bus once, there was this guy who was shouting at his hand for going numb. He then threatened his hand and told it that if it didn't wake back up, he would smash a bottle of alcohol and stab it with a broken end. I hope the hand filed a report against him. I saw an old man in a casino eat 40 or so peppermint candies. He would put 5 in his mouth or so, then swallow, then do it again. These were the ones you would have to suck on for an hour to get anywhere. Tell how candy canes are made. At a concert, sitting behind an extremely sunburnt man, I watched him peel off a sheet of his burnt skin and then eat it, as if it was a perfectly normal thing to do. Oh yes, 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 yes. This is a keeper. One time I was at Walmart and this is by far the strangest thing I've seen at one. I'm behind a lady at the checkout. The last item was 1 zucchini but with a big ass bite taken out of it. Cashier, did you bite this zucchini? Stranger, with a dead serious look on her face. No. Cashier, well, do you still want it? Stranger, yeah, just put it in the bag. From where I was, I could still see the glimmer of saliva from the bite. But even if she was telling the truth, why the hell would you buy a zucchini someone else bit into? I still think about it today. Just yesterday, I saw a guy walking down the street with a glass of beer. Consumption of alcohol in public spaces is illegal here, for the record. Another stranger walking the opposite direction approaches him. Hey, give me your beer. Here's some cash. Go buy me a beer. Buy yourself one too. First stranger obliges, gives this man his beer, and goes off with the money to buy some beer. By the time he's back, second guy is finished the beer. First guy hands a glass to second guy, and they both go their separate ways. Was pretty amusing. I saw a woman on the train file her nails. In between filing each nail she would lick the file clean. Shudder. Watched a guy on the sidewalk below the train platform bend down and casually put a pigeon in his pocket then walk away. Dinner is served, I guess. Where do you think magicians get their doves? In my university dorm, one girl ate the same thing every meal. She would eat sliced bread, start at the middle and eat until the crust but not eat it. So, she'd have an empty frame of intact bread crust, then she'd microwave lettuce and eat it. I was on a first date with this guy and we went for a walk in a park. The path could easily fit 3 people wide, probably 4. He's on the outside and I'm in the middle and there's a lady further ahead, jogging toward us. We start to move over to make sure there's plenty of room for her to jog by. We start moving over more, because she seems to be heading straight for us. As she passes, she swings out her elbow and clocks me in the ribs. I turn to look at her, and she's giving me the dirtiest look. I have no idea who she was and my date had no clue either. I still wonder if he was telling the truth, but he seemed pretty genuinely concerned and bewildered. Saw a man wearing shirt with the word legend printed on the front sit down on a park bench, pull out a wheel of camembert cheese and proceed to eat the entire thing in a few bites. Then stand up and be on his way. A true legend. Heh, legendary. When I was a kid I saw a guy in church lick the entire cover of his hymn book, bottom to top, in one long stroke. I was maybe 10 and he was easily 40. It still haunts me to this day. Edit. Because a few people have asked. No, he wasn't looking at me. It wasn't a perverted thing. I was behind and slightly to the side of him so he 10/10 didn't know I was watching. Also, fairly certain he wasn't doing coke. I didn't know him, but my parents did and I'm confident it wasn't a drug thing. Which makes it weirder, TBH. I was hanging out in Washington Square Park by the fountain with my buddy. Hot summer day. People have their feet in the water and just relaxing. I shit you not, a guy comes up jogging, places his water bottle under the fountain and chugs it, fills it again and jogs away. Me and buddy look at each other like no way dude. A woman got in her car, took a big sip of a smoothie, then proceeded to open her mouth so her small dog could lap up the smoothie in her mouth. Not my story, but one my dad told me. He goes to work very early in the morning, and one day he had stopped in a Wawa to get some coffee. While he was pouring his coffee, he noticed the guy who had already put coffee in the cup and was now standing in front of the cream dispenser, rotating his entire body like he was hula hooping to mix it together. That's how it works, man. When I was backpacking around Ethiopia I ended up staying overnight in some tiny little town whilst waiting for my bus to my next destination. I saw someone walking down the street completely naked with a block of wood clenched between his bum cheeks. It was that strange and illogical that there are times where I question whether or not I saw it. When I worked at PC World I had a customer come in and start browsing landline phones. She then got a call on her mobile phone so decided to take off her jacket and kick off her shoes, take off her socks and lay on the floor of the store whilst talking on her phone. After a while she put the phone down but continued to lay on the floor looking at all the types of landline phone. I ask if she needs a hand and she says she needs help. So I sat down on the floor with her and kicked off my shoes as well and had a good old chat all about landline phones. She ended up buying one with extended warranty so management didn't care that I just sat on the floor with her. Not exactly a stranger. But once in middle school each of the students in my class was assigned a jug each as part of our gardening class, and I remember this one guy sitting near the end of the room, close to where the jugs were kept, jerking it off into one of the jugs which, I found out later, belonged to a girl who he had a crush on. Funny thing is that they were in a relationship a year later, but I don't quite know if she knew what he did to that jug. The infamous love potion trick never fails, that one. I worked at a radio station and was doing a remote at a car dealership. A woman walked up to us wearing a shirt, an apron type skirt, no back, and men's boots. And nothing else. She had spray paint all around her mouth and kept asking to buy the special car. It freaked me out. I was walking back to my apartment after getting some munchies one night and my attention was drawn to this man sitting across the street on a bus bench and struggling to keep his head up. The entire time I was waiting for the light to turn green, he kept wavering. As I was crossing the street, he fell backwards. I approached him and tried to get his attention but didn't want to touch him in case he had suffered some sort of injury. I got back to my apt, which was right above where he was sitting, and told the front desk to call the cops. I watched from my balcony above ambulance come, find him unresponsive, work on him for a while. Soon after they took him away in what I assume was a mortuary transport. It was surreal. I had never seen a person die or a dead body before. And the subsequent conversation with the police was quite hard because I was really baked throughout this whole process. The munchie run was for the munchies. Weirdest night of my life. Weirdest thing I ever saw. Watched a guy nonchalantly scratch his balls multiple times, then wait a few seconds before pretending to scratch his nose. Did it about 6 times in a row. I mean, I've taken a whiff too, but geez man, it's getting real obvious. I was walking through the town I live in a few years ago, and some guy was walking just ahead of me looking like Hagrid from Harry Potter, in a long brown wool coat and long hair and beard, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a plant, with roots and everything, dropping soil everywhere. He looks down, repots the plant in his pocket, and reaches into the other side pocket for his wallet. Since then I've been totally in awe of him, and I often wonder what he was growing in his coat. Back in high school I used to sit in front of this girl during science. She was known to do strange things, talk to someone who wasn't there, start screaming randomly, possible mental illness, so we mostly kept out of her way. Anyway, once I happened to turn around, she looked me dead in the eye while scratching her arse, took her hand out, covered in spit and blood, then while still holding my horrified face, licked her hand. Still haunts me till this day. Now I'm sharing my pain. Sorry.